Good evening, everyone. This is Toby Green, and the date is Saturday, April 11th, in the year of our Lord 2020. And this is the Unemployed League podcast, and I'm your host, Toby Green. So strap in, we got a real humdinger of an episode. I went for a walk this evening in the Gresham sky. I came across the plaid pantry, didn't go in, don't know why. I went across roads in which I couldn't read the street names. I came across a block party. There was no rain. I saw a TV being silhouette on a big screen. And all the neighbors, they came around and huddled for once. I haven't seen that since last summer. And for a second I felt normal. But then I remembered, we're all stuck in our homes under executive order with no way forward and no way back. And it's in these moments that I don't have a heart attack. It's in these moments that I think, what's the future going to hold? What's this all about? When you can't go forward, and you can't go back. All right. Hey, everyone. Good to be with you. This is the Employment League podcast. I'm Toby Green, your host on this little journey. Like I said at the opening, the date is April 11th. So let's just go get into it, because if you haven't skipped ahead by now, you will never skip ahead. So what's shaking out there in the big wide world? Well, first of all, concluded the podcast 14 days in March. And now I have started on this podcast. Really, what has happened is that the initial shock to the system of being quarantined is pretty much over at this point. We're all kind of used to it at this moment. And it's a weird beat because the weather's starting to get nice, at least in Oregon. It is starting to really take off. The weather is getting to be in and around 70 degrees. It's beautiful out here. And I bring this up to say that I actually think this is the most dangerous time of year. This is the most dangerous time of this because basically the social distancing has worked like this. Hey, look, we don't have unlimited resources to tackle the COVID-19 situation. And despite whatever you're seeing in mainstream media, it's a horror show. It's terrible out there. And so since we don't have that, we're all trying to practice this concept of social distancing where people are keeping 6 feet apart. We just learned today that the COVID virus can travel up to 13, but look, let's just keep it at 6 feet. To be blunt, if you're within the COVID virus range of 6 feet and you still get it, well, you're going to have to deal because there's not much. You can't go 13 feet. That's ridiculous. So what is happening at this time and place is that New York City, they're not sure if they've reached the apex yet. In other states and other areas, we're not sure. We are kind of just all dealing with it. at this point in the unemployment situation and what's going on, which I want to talk about why I made the transition from 14 days in March to this podcast, which is that basically the 14 days in March was like that initial shock. So if you want to get a beat on the initial shock and what one human being was dealing with in the initial shock of those first 14 days, go to that podcast. It's there for all time. Bless your heart. And it's part of this. I mean, it's going to be called the Unemployment League podcast, but really it's about that first 14 days. So the first 14 episodes of this podcast is all about that initial shock. From here on out, what this is about is a very real and pressing danger that's happening. And the real pressing danger is that in every time that there's an economic downturn or crisis, the rich and ruling elite use it to consolidate more power amongst themselves. And that is what we have got going on today as I speak. The rich and ruling elite, the stock market just came off of going up by about 3 to 4 to 5,000 points, give or take, in the last week. It's gone bonkers. And the problem that we are dealing with is that many politicians, and it's going to get to the topic of this episode, which is stop mourning Bernie. Stop mourning. It's over. It's over, Johnny. Bernie's not going to be president. He's 78 years old. He's had a heart attack. He's done. Stick a fork in him. Respectfully, don't take that as me being negative towards Bernie or his health or to you as a supporter, but it's time to move on. You don't have the luxury or time of mourning. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I want to set this up by saying that the stock market now, at this point, their profits are completely unhinged from the real economy. They have been for a long time, but it's even worse now. Because there was literally no dissenting votes in either the Senate or the House towards the relief package that got passed back in late March. And because there was no dissenting votes, they're all on the hook. Your favorite politicians and mine, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Cortez, the Squad, whoever you want to name it, they're all complicit. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, centrists and non-centrists. It doesn't matter. They're all complicit in this. Because what they did was, in a moment of panic, not a one of them showed any type of leadership. Not a single one of those candidates who inspire, who are progressive, who are leaders, showed even one iota of leadership. We are on our own. That is my message. So this last week, the stock market went off. Meanwhile, many workers are dealing with a situation in which they have an unemployment situation, which is disgusting. Out and out disgusting. This unemployment situation, and I'll speak from a personal story for a moment. My wife has had to go through it. This whole situation is meant to shame people who are out of work. That's all the unemployment system is set up. And millions of people are going to get real hip to this real quick. Are you looking for work? What are you doing to get back to work? How are you getting back to work? My wife is one of the hardest working people that you will have ever met. My wife absolutely was a preschool teacher whose job got shut down because they literally said to her, your whole system can't work in this environment because if your kids come to school, they're all going to get each other sick or bring it home to their grandparents or other people, and it's going to kill people. So you can't be a teacher anymore. That's what was said to her. That is what essentially was said to her. And yet she's going through this and they're like, well, did you work last week? Were you looking for work? We don't have time. We need to do 1 week waiting in order to make sure you don't just go get a job. And I have heard from tons of workers personally who have told me point blank that they screwed up somewhere in their employment, claimed something wrong, did something wrong, and now they're all being forced to pay money back. That's the world that you live in today. You live in a world in which the unemployment system is taking on millions upon millions of people who are, at least, as they would kindly say, temporarily unemployed. Maybe we come out of this, maybe we don't. I'm not concerned about that now, at the moment, although that is the very heart of this podcast. What I'm concerned about is that they are basically saying to people, yeah, you don't matter. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? The economy is screwed up with no humanitarian end, and the goal of the capitalists, which is the heart of this podcast I want to get to, is to reopen shop as soon as possible. And sadly, I gotta be honest with you folks, and I'm pro working class all the way, many workers agree. There's a lot of workers right now, including myself to a degree, who are like, can we just reopen shop? The answer is no. To myself, I'm saying this no. Because you reopen shop, you're sending people to a butcher shop. That's all you're doing. That's the world we live in, folks. If we unflatten the curve, the whole flattening the curve idea has saved people's lives. And it sucks. It sucks. There's no analogy I can make. We all want to get back to life at normal. I want to go out to a bar and have drinks with my friends and talk with them and chat with them and just be a normal person. But I know that if I do that and if they do that, the chances of any of us either catching the coronavirus ourselves or passing it on is through the roof. And not only that, our medical system, more to the point, can't handle it. What is happening right now is unprecedented in American history. And I say unprecedented because somebody will come along and go, well, what about the Spanish flu of 1919? What about Toby? Yeah, okay, fine. Let's go with it. It's unprecedented, certainly since post-World War II. See, post-World War II, we defeated, as the American entrepreneurial system of dropping bombs on people and letting other countries punch the shit out of each other or punch the heck out of each other. We defeated all the isms in the world. And in that, the ism that arose was capitalism. Wonderful. We have capitalism. It is wonderful. What a wonderful system we have got. And so what happens with this wonderful system of capitalism, or American capitalism, is that for 30 years, from 1945 to 73, American capitalism ran like crazy. It was the number one. It was so far away, and we were providing the best education, the best life, the best of everything human history has ever seen. And then what we did was the capitalists did what they always do. They wanted to keep the gravy train rolling. They started exporting those isms to other countries, which, by the way, is an internationalist fundamentally. I'm not upset about. Think it was going to happen, needed to happen. Great. American standard of living continued to drop, and now we're in a situation in 2020, almost 47 years since that point. We are now in a system where what has happened since that time and place is that in the 47 years since that time of 1973, we have degraded to a point where we have a healthcare system that is completely not ready for this pandemic. Completely. We have had thousands upon thousands of people die. And I bring this up to say that at this point, what the capitalists are saying... So let me step back for a moment, because I think it's important to acknowledge this. I'm going to keep on here. By the way, this podcast is live, so if sometimes I jump around, excuse me, because a thought comes to my head, and a thought just came to my head, which is a dangerous issue. So tons of people could die. That's the reality of what we are dealing with at this moment. And so that is where we're at. We have flattened the curve pretty decently. Now, New York City has not flattened the curve. And it's not because New York City did something wrong or they did anything bad. The virus hit and it spread like wildfire because they are built on top of each other. There's a lot of people in a compact area and they all caught it pretty quickly. Okay. So Donald Trump is at this time and place completely phobic. Not phobic, that's not the right word. Completely enthusiastic about trying to get the country reopened. He has never taken this crisis totally seriously. He's taken it seriously insofar as it's a political measure. And by doing that, he has been able to punch left and punch right. And what I mean by that is the unemployment insurance is a punch left situation. He went very quickly far left of the Democrats who wanted to do means testing